This time we'll call the Policy Committee of the Whole to order this July 16, 2024. Ms. Cindy, have roll call.
Ms. Richards? Mr. Toller? Ms. Abrams?
Here.
Mr. Westmoreland?
Present.
Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Mr. Anthony?
Here.
Mr. Moore? Mr. Piazza?
Here.
Ms. Dominguez?
Present.
I know the quorum is present today. We'll start off with revisions. Section A, consider approval of the revisions to Policy EB, Buildings and Ground Management. Mr. McNeely.
This is referred to as by forethought as a result of a change in state law. And basically it now adds marijuana to things that can't be smoked on school property.
Do I have a motion to adopt?
I motion.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Piazza, second by Ms. Rose. Any discussion? There's no discussion. I call for vote.
Voting is open.
Yes, Miss Cindy. I'm not connected to the internet yet. No, it kind of kicked out. I still spin it. I don't know. Which yours now?
Got it, Brett?
Voting yes.
From you? These come from you?
Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Moving to Section B, consider approval of the revisions to Policy IDCH, Home Study Program. Mr. Jinko standing in for Ms. Fusel.
I will, yes, sir. I'll do my best. Good evening, everyone. The policy before you, IDCH home study, comes about with Act 715 that requires school boards to allow participation by home study students in extracurricular activities and interscholastic activities as long as they live in the attendance zone of the public school and meet and maintain all other requirements for participation.
Do I have a motion to adopt?
I make a motion.
Motion by Ms. Robin,
Second.
second by Ms. Rose. Any discussion? No discussion. Call the question.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Moving to Section C, consider approval of the revisions to Policy IDE, co-curricular activities and extracurricular activities. Again, Mr. Jinko.
Yes, sir. And this is just a piggyback off of the home study program for co-curricular activities and extracurricular activities. It says that public schools shall not disqualify a student from participating in extracurricular activities solely because the student is enrolled in an improved home study program, as long as the student lives in the attendance zone of the public school and meets the qualifications as detailed in policy IDCH, the home study program, which is one of.
So move.
Do I have a motion to adopt?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Joey,
Second.
second by Ms. Robin. Any discussion?
Excuse me.
I do have a quick question. I really could have asked this on the last one as well, but when you say an approved home study program, are they actually a Tangipahoa Whole Parish student?
Students, no, sir.
Not necessarily?
No,
State.
they're not.
Okay.
They petition the state to have a home study program, whether at their home or a few other homes to get together and have one, but it is not our students.
Okay, so they could potentially play Ponchatoula High School basketball, for example, provided that they're in an approved program, even though they're not a student?
March to attendance zone, yes.
Okay, that's a state requirement too, correct? All right.
While you're,
All right, Ms. Rose?
so another question on all of these really is, so in the past, we have allowed, if the parent brought their child in some occasions, or is that gonna be anywhere that we're not responsible to get them wherever they gotta go? If they're gonna participate in an extracurricular activity, if they're a homeschool kid?
Well, if, let's say, the parent would be responsible for bringing them back and forth to practice.
Yeah.
And if, obviously, like for the games.
Yeah, they would ride
the
the- yeah.
bus and so forth and so on.
So
Yes, ma'am.
is that gonna be set up, written
Well,
up
it-
somewhere?
It is that meet all the other requirements, so that may be something we need to spell out when they, maybe have a parent sign something.
Yeah.
That they're responsible for getting the students back and forth, to practice, et cetera.
And basically, that's how it is for the students that we actually have.
Right, our virtual students,
I
same
mean,
thing for them also.
yeah, I mean, I think we need to have something in writing that they understand if they're coming as a homeschool student, that they're still gonna be responsible to get their child to and from.
I think they ought to get the administration, make a form for them to do
Student
that.
services can take care of a form and send it to our schools.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Call for a vote.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Moving on to D, consider approval of the revisions to policy IDFA, interscholastic athletics. Mr. Jinko?
Thank you, sir. Again, another piggyback off of the home study program. In public schools shall not disqualify students from participating in interscholastic athletics solely because the student is enrolled in an approved home study program, so long as the student lives in the attendance zone of the public school and meets the qualifications as detailed in policy IDCH, the home study program. Then it goes on that last page, it talks about the scholastic requirements, talking about must take the number of courses which allows him or her to earn a minimum of 4 half Carnegie units or a total of 2 Carnegie units per semester.
Do
I'll
I hear
make a motion to accept.
Motion by Ms. Rose,
Second.
second by Mr. Joey. Any discussion?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
I know we're
Brent?
getting redundant here with this, it's basically the same rule over and over again, but it just brought up another question. Didn't last year, if I'm not mistaken, we let go of the requirement that the student athlete pays for the insurance, correct? Does anybody recall if that's the case?
Yeah,
It's paid in all students' fee.
yeah.
Correct. So would these students be required at that point? Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's two things we may want to consider sticking in here somewhere, or,
We have discussed that, and we will add that to the form that the parent.
got it.
signs.
Okay, thank you.
Because it says they have to do everything everyone else has to do.
Gotcha.
But part of it is paid the $20.
Okay.
Any other questions? Then we'll go ahead and call for a vote.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Section E, consider approval of the revisions to policy IHA grading systems.
Yes, sir. Act 428 requires public schools in Louisiana to use a uniform 10-point grading scale. This reverses the use of a narrower uniform grading scale as required some years ago.
Hear a motion to adopt?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Joey,
Second.
second by Ms. Rose. Any discussion? Call for a vote.
Voting is open.
Mr. Jinko, you may want to switch places now since,
Let her take the.
yes.
Actually, next does all Mr.
Everything else, yeah.
That's what I was telling you.
Then everybody turn and look at me
It was a pretty good time, everybody was saying.
Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, moving on to F, consider approval of the revisions to policy GAMA, employee tobacco use. Jinko?
Yes, sir. Act 352 prohibits the use of marijuana in any form by our employees.
So it's in accordance with the first revision we did. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Motion by Ms. Rose.
Second.
Second by Mr. Joey. Any discussion? Call for a vote.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, moving on to G, consider approval of the revisions to policy JBE truancy. Mr. Jinko?
Yes, sir. The addition is some requirements on the parents, the responsibilities of parents or legal guardians related to if a student is considered truant. Parent or legal guardian of a student shall enforce the attendance of the student at the school to which the student is assigned. Parent or legal guardian of a truant student shall ensure that the student makes up missed work by attending after-school tutoring sessions, weekend makeup classes, or other remediation opportunities as determined by the school board until the student has caught up with his or her schoolwork. The parent or legal guardian shall also attend meetings at the school on at least a monthly basis relative to the student's progress until the student has caught up on his or her missed schoolwork, and any assistance conducted by the school district that provides information on support available to the families. Principal of each school or his or her designee shall also note any concerns that the school personnel have relative to the child's school attendance on the back of any supplemental security income form that the school receives relative to that child.
Do I hear a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Ms. Rose,
Second.
second by Mr. Trent. Any discussion? No discussion, we'll call for a vote.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Moving to section H, consider approval of the revisions to policy JCDAA, student tobacco use.
Yes, sir. This, the addition is that prohibits the use of marijuana in any form by our students.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt administration recommendation.
Motion by Mr. Joey,
Second.
second by Ms. Rose. Any discussion? No discussion, we'll call for the vote.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, I'd like the record to reflect that Mr. Moore has now joined us in this policy committee today. Moving on to section I, consider approval of the revisions to policy JCDAE, student use of electronic devices. Mr. Jinko?
Thank you, sir. Act 313 adds this language, no student shall possess on his or her person an electronic telecommunication device throughout the instructional day. If a student brings an electronic telecommunication device in any public elementary or secondary school building or on the grounds thereof during an instructional day, the electronic device shall either be turned off and properly stowed away for the duration of the instructional day or prohibited from being turned on and used during the instructional day. Electronic telecommunication devices shall include, but not limited to, cellular telephones, personal computers, laptops, electronic instruments, iPads, iPods, tablet devices, e-readers, or similar devices. There is a provision that if it's in the student's individual educational plan, the individual accommodation plan, or Section 504 plan, or an individual health plan, the student may use the electronic device with those parameters of that particular plan.
I'll make a motion.
I have an amendment.
Motion by Ms. Robin.
I'll second so we can have
Second by
discussion.
Mr. Joey.
I have an amendment.
Mr. Duncan has an amendment.
I have a couple of amendments. I'll do them one at a time. Under second offense, so first off, it's my understanding that the statute requires us to adopt a policy that prohibits the use of the devices on campus, which I fully support, but we still have discretion on what the consequences will be.
No language of consequences, correct?
So, what we have in here is the same language that we had before.
Yes, sir.
And so what I'd like for the board to consider is some revisions to what we are prescribing as violation or as consequences for the violations. The first revision I'd like to propose is where it says second offenses, I'd like to add a sentence that says that the conference, let me just figure out how to word it. The conference between the parent, the guardian, and the administrator shall take place within 3 school days of the administration receiving a written request from the parent.
So you're just adding, basically the sentence will stay the same except for until the parent or guardian can be set up for a conference which will have to take place in 3 days?
From the date that the parent
Okay.
makes the written request. So
Okay.
it would be
Okay.
adding a sentence. What's there will stay in place, adding a sentence that says that the conference where this is supposed to take place shall be scheduled within 3 days from when the parent sends in a written request for the, for.
Parent/guardian.
Yes.
Okay,
So once you get that, Miss Cindy, we'll,
Yeah, read it back.
okay. I have the conference between the guardian and the administrator shall take place in 3 school days after receiving a written request by the parent.
Within 3 school
yeah.
days.
Within, okay.
And written or electronic, I guess we could say.
Communication from the
Yeah,
parent.
written or electronic communication from the parent or guardian.
What would happen if they don't show up in 3 days?
Well, it says that they only get the phone when they show up.
Have the
The issue that comes up is, and this is gonna be more consequential on my next amendment, but the issue that comes up is, well, I asked for my conference, I never got an email response, or I asked for my conference, I wanted to come get my phone. Well, on the second offense, I think we ought to be able to commit that conference will take place within 3 days from the date that the parent requested. But it also puts it on the parent to make the request. If they never communicate to us that they want to schedule this meeting, then it doesn't get scheduled. The phone just stays in the office. But we've outlined with some degree of specificity what that procedure will be.
And it has to be in writing. It
In
can't,
writing or electronic communication, and the parent has to initiate the request to schedule it.
Okay, so how do we alert the parent that the student's phone has been taken?
I have a feeling that the child is going to alert that parent.
Very
If
fast.
If the child does that.
Well, it's not on-
What if the parent doesn't know the child's phone has been taken out of fear? The child didn't alert the parent.
I don't think
And
that's
then
on.
when the parent finds out that the phone get taken, I think we still have an obligation to reach out to the parent to notify them that the phone has been taken from their child. I
That's
think
not
we
gonna be
still
part
have
of
an
my amendment.
Obligation to do that.
I don't think I have an obligation to do that, but
I believe that just from knowing how children, what the nature of children are, that we should
But we can-
not remove the responsibility to ensure that we've done everything that we can.
okay, well, I'm
Second
open
to
to
that
an
motion.
amendment.
all right, well, let's,
I'll make a second to the motion.
so the motion's been made by Mr. Duncan, second by Ms.
I'll come back to you,
Rose.
Jerry. Give me a minute on that.
So we want to, is there any discussion on this amendment? And if not, we need to vote on this amendment first. Call for a vote on it then, to allow the amendment. We'll call it Amendment 1.
Voting is open.
I have a quick question on that. Does this align, and I know we've made so many changes to this particular policy over the years when it comes to cell phones. In our code of conduct, don't we have a section on violations for electronics? Is that motion going to align with our stuff?
This is what you have in the code of conduct, and any approval changes to this will be made into the code of conduct.
Okay, that's the only thing I want to make sure that we're not
Correct.
contradicting ourselves when we do it. Thank you.
I mean, I agree with this amendment. I'm just saying that it's just incomplete.
I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna fix it.
Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, next amendment, under where it says first offense. Where there's a sentence that says the parent shall be notified of the incident. I would propose that we amend that sentence to read as follows. For this offense and each subsequent offense, the parent shall be notified of the incident and consequences via electronic communication to the email address on file for that guardian. What, you ready? So, under where it says first offense, there's a sentence already that says the parent shall be notified of the incident.
Gotcha.
We're going to amend that sentence to read as follows. For this offense and any subsequent offense, the parent shall be notified of the incident and consequences via electronic communication to the email address on file for the parent.
Can we add and or text? Why not? Why not? Why not? I'm sorry. I don't understand. Why not? We're talking about a child.
I can tell you.
We're talking about a child being put in some type of jeopardy here. What price are we willing to pay?
I got it. If no email address is on file, then to the text, via text to the phone number on file.
But who's responsible to text? Because we don't have
Yeah.
designated phones given to our
We have the
administrator.
ability to do text messages. No, I don't want to write it down.
Look, I'm only asking for fairness because we don't know what circumstances or situations some of these parents are in.
And I agree, but at the same
We have
time, you
some
also
parents
got to
who are
have.
at a terrible disadvantage. They may not have email. They may not have.
But what I'm saying though, they should be able to also respond to the schools when they're reaching out via email and or a phone call. Like as a parent, when I look at my phone, I see my kid's school called, I'm going to call them back.
Via email.
That's the parent's responsibility, not mine as the school system.
Me too.
Well, I mean, I think he fixes it.
I'm gonna do
If
the
they
same
don't
thing.
have an email, then they.
Yeah, I mean, not having an email, that's fine. That's when
What
we
I
make the
don't want to
phone
have to
call.
do, Jerry, if it's okay with you, is I don't want to have our administrators obligated to call and call and call and call.
Right,
But
right.
if I have an email address, I can use the email. If I don't have an email, I can send a text to the number that you have provided us.
I just feel like the bottom line is,
that's more.
they
Yeah,
disregarded
for this offense
a
and
rule,
any subsequent
and we're bending over
offense, the
backwards to
parent
try to
shall be
get their phone
notified.
back to them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous.
State law.
And it's a state law,
I
it's
was gonna
not
say,
our
not to
law.
mention, it's a state law, they shouldn't have the phone anymore anyway, and that should be, and I think we've discussed that, sending out notifications, starting to get that out there, put it on our Facebook, put it on our our other social medias, that come the fall, no phones will be allowed.
Actually, I was going to ask a question on that, and I'll use this opportunity. So it says during the instructional day. I guess, to me, that could be kind of vague. At Punch Tool, we've been practicing the green zone thing, that they use it at lunchtime, bus sheds, et cetera. Is that going to be a thing of the past now, in your
Yeah,
opinion?
Yes.
that's
Okay.
done, yeah.
So it's just, if it's at school, it needs to be turned off, stowed away, not used, period.
Correct.
So
Correct.
it's like we've given these kids a lot, now we're taking, well, the lawmakers
Yes,
are
sir.
taking it all back, so that's gonna,
That's a very good point. The legislature is taking it all back,
Right.
not Thamesville Parish School Board.
we need
Yes,
to get that out.
we
like, big time.
we definitely need to let our constituents know, we're not doing this.
We
This
are
was the
working
state.
on some, as Ms. Rose said, we're working on some information to send out, not only about cell phones and so forth, but we also want to get a head start on attendance.
Yep.
How important it is to be at school, and start making phone calls now, whether it's the automated system or not, to remind students and parents. But we are going to do something with the phones, especially the changes that are being made via the state legislature.
And I also wonder, Melissa or Coach or Mr. Jenko may know the answer to this, but it is a state law now, and I understand that, but what kind of oversight do you think we can expect from the lawmakers?
From the lawmakers,
Yeah.
none. They've personally, I think they feel they've done their job and they're moving on to the next issue.
It's up to us.
So,
Yeah.
and I also wanted to ask on that piggyback is, with it now being a law that they cannot have it on campus, do we have any gray areas on what we can do to enforce it? Like, as far as, I know I mentioned this before and it kind of got laughed at, putting like they do with the prisons, a jammer where you can't use your cell phone.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Well, that's what these consequences are, but there again, Joey, it's principal enforcement.
Yeah.
This is
On the
amendment number
campus.
2.
Because now we physically have it in law now.
Well,
All right, we have a proposed amendment by Mr. Duncan. I need a second to the amendment.
So read the,
Second. I think I have.
Second by Ms. Rose, but we'll go ahead and
Yeah, please
get
read.
Ms. Cindy to read it.
It reads, "For this offense and any subsequent offense, the parent shall be notified of incident and associated consequence
the
via
incident, I'm sorry, of the incident and associated consequences.
via email, the email address on file for the parent/legal guardian. If no email address is on file, then said notification shall be provided via text message to the phone number on file."
All right. So we have a motion and a second for the second amendment to this revised policy. Do we have any further discussion? So we're going to vote on allowing this amendment right now. Call the question.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
All right. And the last amendment that I don't know if I'll even get a second on, but this is how I feel on it. I don't want to suspend these kids for this offense. I don't think they ought to get to stay home for violating this specific rule, staying home and probably playing on their electronic devices each day that they're staying home. Instead, what I would propose is that we strike the provisions related to suspension and instead put in as the consequence, because under the second offense and the first offense, in addition to having the conference, the administrator and the parent have to reach an agreement on some sort of contract for subsequent offenses. So we already give them the ability to do that, but I think the more severe consequence is a longer period of time where this child will be without their electronic device. And so what I would propose is that we said under second offense that the conference has to take place within 3 days. Under the third offense, we would have the same sentence, but that the conference has to take place within 14 school days from the date within which the parent sends written notification requesting the conference. To me, that's a much more appropriate consequence for the child refusing to follow this rule, and it doesn't take instructional time from the student.
So we would be getting rid of the pre-K 6 through 12, we would get rid of those two?
All of the provisions related to suspensions or the child missing instructional time would come out, and the consequence would be that the child is without that electronic device for a longer period of time.
Now, Mr. Duncan, well, can we have discussion on this before we?
I second the motion.
Well, we got a motion and a second, but yes, of course, we're going to have discussion.
Okay.
Ms. Jenkins, do you have the language?
I'm getting there.
So you're going to strike the sentence that says the parent and student shall be informed that the child shall, you're taking all of that out.
Correct. And then we adding the sentence that the conference shall take place, whatever language we used last time, the conference between the parent and the administrator shall take place within 14 school days from the date in which the conference is requested.
So it could still happen day one, potentially, though, correct?
It could, but
That was my question.
I mean, we can change that. We could say,
I was going to say, instead of using within, I would say on day.
we could say no sooner than 5 days and no more than 14 school days.
I mean,
from
if
the
you're
date
going to
in
put it
which-
in there to have teeth, that we're keeping this as long as we can, I would say, hey, if we're going to say 15 days is the day, don't put within, just put on day 15.
Well, I don't want to put on day 15 because these parents and the administrators probably need some flexibility.
I'm saying, or day 15 on or past, depending on schedule.
So, like I said, the way that we would typically do this is to say no sooner but no later, because we want to put
Yeah.
some
I just don't
restrictions.
want them to
that
have it on day one, and then now we just
So
kind of, does that make
read your
sense?
screen. Read your screen and tell me what you want to say. Strike
I'm about to come
suspension.
type again. Can I come type again?
Yeah, that's not, yeah, this is
Don't
not,
be his own secretary.
I mean,
And
But that's
then-
what you're looking for, is a no sooner than
Yes.
X date,
Yeah,
but
just-
no.
Just
but
that
no
way it
later
has
than.
teeth on that one.
So
Like,
would 5 be enough, or do you think?
for
it
the
should
second
be-
or for the third?
For the second, the
Yeah,
third
5
is,
should be fine for the second.
no, the second one is
3.
3.
So no, I
on
think
the
it needs to be
third-
more than 5.
No, I'm sorry, the second is 5, correct?
No, second was 3.
Second is 3.
Second was 3.
So then the third offense needs to be way more than 3.
So 7?
7.
Okay,
Give it
the
a week.
All right,
consequence.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, we gotta have some teeth in it, because if
Yeah.
they're breaking a state law and we're allowing them to break a state law, then that's on us.
Question
They have to
about
have some sort of
that.
punishment.
Or we
What
could
is-
just ban
what
them
is
from
our
bringing phones
punishment
altogether. once
If
they
we
get-
allow them to break the state law, if our students, we're not policing that, what's our punishment?
What I'm going to say is, when you head home on the interstate, there are many people that are speeding. So to be very honest,
Wait.
there's going to be students that will maybe carry that phone in their pocket and get away with it. But there's also going to be individuals that are going to be caught. So I can honestly say, I do not feel that any of our administrators are going to purposely not follow the policy that you're putting into effect. But you're going to get phone calls that Ron had his yesterday and they missed Ron, but they got my son or got my daughter, and that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I like that speeding analogy, though. That's-
Yes, sir.
And see, that's kind of what I'm talking about, though, when we write this down, guys, is it has to be consistent.
Followed.
We can't have little Jimmy getting it on 5 days and then Susie getting it on day 10.
Or one principal not.
Right, or one
enforcing it.
principal saying,
Think
hey,
that if it's written, right, and we're clear.
right, and that's what I'm saying, but,
If we're written, regardless of how it's written, if we're clear, then reading what's written is the way that they should administer.
but that's what I'm saying, this
Policy.
amendment needs to be very clear,
So I-
very
I-
spelled out.
Well, I'm saying that in defense
Maybe they don't
of
get it right at all.
some flexibility so that, we are not a zero tolerance.
Yeah, no. I just don't want the phone call of a mad parent that says, hey, my cousin's daughter got hers back in 5 days on the second offense, but my son, they can't schedule his until it's been 15 days. That's not consistent. That's not fair either to the child who got it.
Then they're not
back later.
following the policy,
Right.
Joey. Then they're not following what we've written.
Right. But
So, I mean, that's not on us. That's on anybody who's not following the policy.
I'll wait till we get this written because I might want to add in there too something.
But again, in the reality of running a school, I may get mine back in 5 days, and on day 6, the principal may be at a meeting. Day
Right.
7, they may be at a training, so it may be day 8 before the next one. So you're going to get those phone calls. It is not anything that anybody is purposely doing.
Right.
It is just a calendar issue or so forth.
I just
Or if day
don't.
4 is on Friday.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, or if day 4 is on Friday.
Correct.
And that's what I'm saying. You also have holidays within this time. And the biggest thing that I'm looking here is, yes, they need a consequence, 120%. I don't want our administration in the crosshairs for a decision we make on this board.
Then all you have to do is just follow the policy.
If you're suggesting, Glenn?
If they don't fluctuate, then we won't have that.
What about, once we finish this, I want the members to start thinking about, if we've done this 3 times and we've taken this away,
What happens?
why don't
after?
we say that if you get another one, that you're banned from bringing cell phones for at least a semester or 2 semesters to school?
Well, how do we?
Can't
what
even
if-
have one. 'cause
But
you
what happens
follow
if
the
they
rules.
break that, though? What if they
they get
violate that?
suspended.
Do they get?
Well, then
do
they get suspended, yeah.
If it is,
If they can't follow after 4
If
times,
it is the policy, you're
they've lost the-
forewarned, then I see no problem with it.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Are we going to enforce that with a suspension or to alternative? Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All right, yeah, I just wanted to lay that out there. Let's go ahead
Yeah, but
and
that's,
consider the third amendment for
I'm glad we gave ourselves an hour.
the one that Brad has
Half.
proposed.
Half.
Did we have a second?
Okay.
I think, yeah,
I think
Jerry,
Mr. Jerry seconded.
Jerry,
yes.
seconded
So
it.
this adds under that third and subsequent offenses, deleting the provisions related to suspensions, and adds the sentence at the end of that paragraph, this conference shall take place no sooner than 7 days and no later than 14 days from, I still had a typo, sorry, the date that the parent sends in a written or electronic communication. Still,
Would have been
yeah, we need to fix that,
to the school. or-
to the school, requesting it.
And it should say school
No
days
sooner
too,
than-
correct?
no sooner
Yeah, it
than-
should,
Here
does
we
say
go,
self
and
school
we'll
days.
put like-
No
in the
later than
thunder.
14. Yeah, no later than.
Mr. Duncan, for your amendment, I just want to ask this question because Ms. Stilley brought it up. Are we going to put anything about holidays in here? Okay, so school days? But what I'm saying is, what if I get my phone taken on a on a Friday evening
Before Christmas.
before Christmas? That's more than 7.
yeah, should be done.
Well, no, it's not 7 school days. So yeah,
If you have school
you're not in
days.
school. Okay,
What happens the day before school is up?
be wise and, and follow the law.
Send it.
How would you simplify it? How would you simplify it?
If that happens, Joey, then,
Absolutely.
then the rule stands.
We going
The
through.
rule stands. You know? I mean, you should be,
You better make these rules quick, because the lightning and the thunder is coming, we might not be with lights.
Don't put that juju
hopefully
on
we
us.
won't get another one of those.
Hush, Robin. Hush on that. No more tornadoes. I parked it.
Y'all been doing those rain dance?
Yeah.
All right, that's it. So for the third and in each subsequent offense, basically the kid loses the electronic device for at least 7 days and as many as 14 school days.
Last question, promise. What happens, because I know, we have people who have wives on this board that teach. We have students that have figured out the system where they'll get a phone taken and they have a backup phone. What if they get another phone taken within that
Second
time
offense,
period?
Then when,
Yeah, we take that phone too, it's the same.
Okay.
that would be the second offense.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
But that's what I'm saying, would that be second or third?
No, it would be the second. If they, if having the phone taken the first time was the first time, the offense is followed. You know, your first offense is your first offense.
Yeah.
You bring another phone to school and you,
But y'all, the consequence, I don't know, the consequences are multiple here. Just, they're losing use of the device.
Yep.
Mama has to, or daddy has to take off of work and come meet with the principal.
Yep.
Which is that would piss me off. That's a big consequence. They have to reach an agreement with the administration on how to resolve this issue. All three of those things have to happen every offense, and those are substantial consequences and appropriate. But progressively, it takes longer for the family to get the device back. So it's a progressive and it's, I think, appropriate consequences for this type of an offense.
And it keeps kids in school.
I would say,
And it keeps the
I would
kids
say
in
that we
school.
keep one thing in mind. We're dealing with, in high school, let's just go straight
That's
to
in
high
the
school.
last sentence.
In high school, we're dealing
That's
with,
addressed in the last.
we're dealing with people in transition. They're kids and they're becoming adults. And there is a natural rebellion in that state of development. And that's what we're dealing with here, and probably the parents at home are dealing with the same thing. So, you know, we can't treat these children like criminals.
Right.
Because that has an effect on them as well, and it's a long-lasting effect.
All right, Ms. Rose?
but Brett, if you put this under third or subsequent offense, that kind of adhere, I mean, what Mr. Westmoreland is recommending, after a certain amount, they shouldn't be able to get their phone back. They should lose their privilege, and after that, they should be suspended.
Well, so the issue with
Well,
again,
see,
You can't hardly
they don't have- I think it
you
has-
can't hardly put subsequent in there if you're gonna add another number 3.
but I don't agree with. So I'm sorry, Jerry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
This policy already says no phones on campus, period. Okay, so that's the first thing to understand, that it's not, so we are adopting a policy that already says you're not to bring these phones on our campus. But if you do, we better not see them, and if we do see them, here's the consequence, okay? So that we already have a policy that says don't bring them on campus. That's what this does. I just don't believe that suspending is the correct consequence. I don't care how many times these kids do it.
But they could do in-school suspension, in school and still have
You're
work,
still losing instruction,
but they'll be in school doing
but they
workload.
don't. I don't like the notion, for this offense, to me, the appropriate consequence is every time they do it, they lose. They're not, because when we take this phone, they're not just losing use of the phone at school, they're losing use of this device everywhere that they might otherwise use it. It's a big consequence. I don't think we're gonna get to that fourth offense.
Well, let's hope not.
Rose-
We can always adjust this policy.
And if we
need
do,
to.
then, yeah.
Rose, if you have a disobedient child at home, when do you at what point in what stage do you remand your child to the courts?
Well, this ain't got nothing
for
to, this
correct-
ain't the court.
I'm
This is
just saying that
this is
suspension
if
is-
a disobedient child keeps bringing the phone and keeps bringing the phone and keeps bringing the phone, and we do them nothing, they're gonna keep bringing the phone
Take their
and keep bringing the
you
phone.
take their privilege, you take their phone, you take their privilege, you don't have to.
And not to mention the fact that we didn't say any, I mean, we said other communicative devices, but it doesn't specifically say an iWatch or a watch.
Well,
that's a
that's
different-
coming. Give me a second. That's
So
coming.
they could be using their phone on their
Nope,
watch.
that's coming. Give
But
me a
that's
second.
also included
We're
in
getting
the
too
other
dumb.
part of this policy
Well,
that
that's
says
in
any
here.
other
Yeah.
electronic, yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, Brett,
Or
should we
similar
add
device.
guardian
yeah. I mean, I
behind
get it, I
parent
get
on
it,
this one too?
I get it.
Yeah, we should, anywhere we say parent/guardian is what it
Okay.
should say.
Cindy, you caught that? We just, if we can put guardian behind parent in the amendment.
Parent/guardian.
And the last thing I did want to point out, because Ms. Stilley and I were just talking about it, the very last sentence already in this policy, it's a different issue to me at least, when we have a student that is just refusing to
Willful,
follow,
yeah.
willful disobedience. This policy already says if we're dealing with a student that is just willfully disobedient, they're refusing to turn over the device when they've been told, well, they're going to work their way up the student
Conduct.
code of conduct. That's a different violation. What we're talking about is, the types of instances where Sally, put your phone away. Sally, put your phone away. Sally, last time, put your phone away. Okay, I warned you. Give me the phone. That triggers this, and then each time that happens, this is the type of thing that we're going to go through.
The only thing I want to make a comment on that is, I just don't want that to be an escape route for them too, is I'm not giving up my phone because the consequences are less through the code of conduct than it is right here to have to give up my phone. And like literally the school take it.
Well, no, it's still plus.
And that's what I'm
still
saying, that
plus
needs to
plus.
be very clear that, hey, not only are you getting the disobedient, but we're also taking the phone one way or another.
Oh yeah, we're taking the phone.
Okay, I just want that to be clear, because that has happened in the past where we've had some rules and they just refused to do it, and it was actually lesser consequences to refuse
Yeah.
than to actually have given in and gotten your phone taken. And I don't want that to be an escape route for them, because they will take it.
All right, well, let's go ahead and vote on to allow the amendment number 3 as shown on our screen.
We kicked you out because you said lightning.
Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make an amendment as well.
All right,
I'd like
call
to,
that amendment number 4.
number 4.
Okay,
I would like to add smart watches in the section where it says should not be limited to cellular phones, personal computers, laptops. I would like to add smart watches.
okay.
Because we have currently 2 paragraphs above the word violations. Let's see what that says.
And I'm actually gonna, my next one is to remove that section above because it's repetitive. That's an
So
old
where are you
outdated.
adding-
It says cell phone or other electronic device. That's
In the
The
administration's recommendation in green,
This is fourth.
where it says shall include but not limited to cellular phones, personal computers, laptops, electronic instruments, iPads, iPods, tablet devices, e-readers, or similar devices. I'd like to make sure we spell out smartwatches as well.
Well, if you look at line 2 of
It does say
the first,
smartwatch.
it says, parentheses, talking about mobile cellular service devices, it says cell phones, smartwatches, camera phones, or any similar device.
But see, that whole paragraph's gonna have to be, you're gonna have to look at that whole paragraph because it says unless authorized by school or principal. Whereas the one underneath it says none at all shall possess. That's a contradicting paragraph. That's our old one that we had, and then we added a new one below it. We either gotta eliminate one and let one be the main, or go back and eliminate some words in that other one. Because it's redundant and it's, like I said, there's a pager in there. Anybody still got a pager they carry around?
But that's what I'm saying. I'm not following which paragraph. So which paragraph are you talking about adding the word?
I'm talking about the new one, where it's the one in green on our sheet from administration, on the very top of the page.
Okay.
No student shall possess. That should be the new one. The one above that should be gone. Because this new paragraph that was done by Foresight should replace the one above it.
They did.
Well, the one above it says that no student unless authorized by the school or principal shall.
But according to law, they're not authorized at all.
Student shall possess.
But according to law, they're not authorized at all, whether the school wants it or not.
There are certain.
Unless they have an
exemptions.
accommodation plan, a 504 plan, or an
Exactly.
individual health plan.
Exactly.
That would be as authorized.
Yes.
But that's in the other paragraph as well. You just got 2 paragraphs that kind of contradict one another.
Okay, so I'm agreeing that that first paragraph needs to be deleted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can we do that first?
Yes.
Do we want to make?
So amendment number 4, remove the first paragraph from the policy.
Hold on, and I might want to delete some other stuff too.
Yeah. I agree that that paragraph should be deleted.
Yeah, so let's delete that first paragraph.
So should
So
we,
there's a motion by Mr. Joey to delete the first paragraph of the student use of electronic devices. So is that a second, Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
So there's been a motion and a second for amendment number 4 to delete the entire first paragraph of the policy. Any discussion on that? Called for a vote on that amendment.
Mr. Duncan seconded it.
Mr. Duncan, yes.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
And amendment number 5 would be adding smartwatch under a list of
where it says the last last sentence of this now being the first paragraph, electronic telecommunication devices shall include but not be limited to cellular telephones, and we can add right in there smartwatches,
Yes.
and then personal computers, laptops, electronic instruments. You see that, Miss Cindy?
Yes.
Okay, but
see
this brings up
Okay.
Ron, I mean, we're not prohibiting, and the statute doesn't say that we can't use personal computers, laptops, and iPads.
I'm thinking that's only at Daybreak, not ones we provide.
But that's not what it says.
I mean,
Yeah,
we could add.
personal.
it
In other
on
words, they
different
have to
items.
use the school-provided telecommunication.
Yes.
This to me reads as, you can't bring your own personal computer, laptop and use it, unless you're doing it for class on the
And
school's
you could add a sentence behind that, Mr. Duncan. The only electronic devices allowed are ones provided by the Tangi school system for classroom use. You could add a sentence right behind it.
You could say electronic telecommunication devices provided by the school shall be allowed.
Yeah,
Yeah, just add one sentence.
just add a sentence behind it.
Well, and that's what we've got, I guess, further down
Well, it says acceptable use.
for acceptable uses. So, man, we could say, add the word, this would be my friendly amendment.
This,
So where you adding the word smartwatches at the end of that sentence, comma, except in accordance with our acceptable use policies.
That's why we have attorneys on these boards. So.
do I have a second?
And then under here, acceptable use, the protection of services.
So it's a motion to amend, to insert smartwatches at the last sentence in the new paragraph 1, except in accordance with the district acceptable use policy.
Yeah, because it shows in there that
Yeah.
you could use it for instruction.
Yes.
Oh, I knew exactly that would cause that much drama. That causes more fights and drama between parents and students. Can we do this for
So
parents?
Be the
this will be
administrator, we're not
amendment
allowed to
number
get test scores out.
5. This will be amendment number 5 by Mr. Joey, and is that a second by you, Mr. Duncan?
Yep.
Second by Mr. Duncan.
All right, let's everybody take a look at it. And I have it marked where you want smart watches inserted.
And it should be motioned by Joey Piazza, not Brett Duncan.
Oh,
No, you keep it as Brett.
Well, I
Okay.
can't
Yeah, let him get the heat.
I think the acceptable use section's okay. Did you see something, Joey?
No, it looked good to me.
All right, so we have amendment number 5. I'd like to call a vote to allow the amendment.
voting is open.
Mr. Jenko, when we do those meetings with a guardian or parent, and we come up with that plan, do they sign a document saying, okay, I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to make sure.
Yes,
Voting-
we- Contract, actually.
Beautiful.
Is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Move to adopt as amended.
All right,
Second.
there's been a motion made to adopt the revised and amended, and second by Mr. Joey. Any further discussion? If not, we'll call for a vote as amended.
Voting is open.
And it clicks on time.
And then, Mr. Jinko, all of these, at the bottom of the
Voting.
amendment, the references of the other policies that have this same type of language will be fixed to reflect this? All of our other rules, or do we have to change some of these other rules? Other cross-references on the bottom?
Well, the cross-references related to discipline, student code of conduct, and the student computer and internet use, yes, ma'am, will be corrected.
I'll be corrected, okay.
The acceptable use, we made no changes, so we just referenced it as one of the acceptable
Okay.
ways to use it.
And then, Mr., on that same issue, didn't we move out of policy that chart now to where that's, we don't have to change that chart every time now? Y'all just can do that administratively, right?
Correct. That is going to be the handbook that our parents will receive and that our administrators will use to properly enforce the code of conduct.
But y'all can do that administratively now, every time we
Every
jumble
time
up
the changes are made here, the changes will be made in the handbook.
without it
which is
having to go
online
back to
accessible.
policy
Correct.
and all that.
All right, we're gonna move on to J. Consider approval of the revisions to policy JD, discipline. Mr. Jinko?
Thank you, sir. Two minor changes. First page says, "No principal or administrator shall prohibit or discourage a teacher from taking disciplinary action, recommending disciplinary action, or completing a form to initiate disciplinary action against a student who violates school policy or who interferes with an orderly education process. No principal or administrator shall retaliate or take adverse employment action against a teacher for taking disciplinary action against a student if the disciplinary action that the teacher takes is in accordance with school board policy." And then on page 2, it is a may to shall change that says, when a pupil violates the school's code of conduct, the teacher shall have the student immediately removed. It was made, but the statute changes it to shall.
So moved to adopt administration
Motion,
recommendation.
To adopt by Mr. Joey,
Second.
second by Ms. Robin. Any discussion?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Jerry?
Okay, by changing this to shall, it gives the teacher no right to discern whether or not a disturbance is something that she assumes is something that's necessary to remove that child from the class. Is that what we're doing?
The instance would be when the teacher goes through he or she's classroom management plan and they've exhausted everything in the classroom management plan, or it is an issue that is a safety issue, the teacher will contact the office and they shall remove the student from the classroom instead of may remove the student. But it's going to be after the teacher has exhausted his or her discipline plan, or there's an emergency, a threat that is for the safety of the other students.
Says it's
or
an
for that student in the
immediate
classroom.
threat to the safety of students or
Yes.
the teacher.
Correct.
Okay. All right. No other questions? We'll call for the vote.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Moving on to K, consider the approval of revisions to policy JDD, suspension. Mr. Jinko?
Thank you, sir. On page 2, that first green paragraph is the language that we talked about and went over the last policy meeting related to behavioral health support for students that I believe you're going to approve tonight. That's what that first paragraph talks about. Second suspension, there's going to be a meeting to, in our language, is that student assistance team to try to assist the student to make sure he or she has the support that they need to be successful in the classroom. Paragraph 2 is some new language. It says, notwithstanding any public school, state, or local policies, a student in grades 6 through 12 who is suspended a third time within the same school year for any offense, excluding those related to dress code or tardiness, shall be recommended for expulsion. And then paragraph 3 says, any student in grades pre-K through 5, after being suspended on 3 occasions for committing drugs or weapon offenses during the same school year, shall, upon committing the 4th offense, be expelled from all public schools of the system until the beginning of the next regular school year, and the student's reinstatement shall be subject to the review and approval of the school board. Page 3 has a section added, says additionally the principal or his or her designee shall immediately recommend the student's expulsion to the superintendent for the above offenses 6 through 12. That is related to weapons, firearms, knife that has a blade of 2.5 inches or longer.
Do I hear a motion to adopt?
I'll make a motion to adopt the recommendations.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Rose, second by
Trent.
Mr. Trent.
And I do have one thing to ask here.
All right.
Because we're scratching through some of this and putting that, you know, if they're found with a weapon, they're automatically put up for expulsion. That paragraph right below where you scratched out where it says student found carrying possession of a knife with a blade less than 2 1, is that now redundant because it's any weapon at this point? Should that also be scratched through as well? I mean, a knife's a knife, whether it's 2 inches, 1 inch. I mean, we saw that last year come into play with keychains and stuff like that. I think that now needs to be addressed here. I would recommend that we make an amendment to scratch through that paragraph and let it just fall underneath the weapons.
Does the statute require that? What,
I mean, to me, a weapon's a weapon, right? Whether I bring a Glock or I bring a semi-automatic, it's both a gun.
Well, if you go back to the first page where it gives you your clarification of why you're changing this, it says in there the amounts, the dates, and they're listed in the state law, and they are listing it in the state law.
right, but I'm asking about the,
The length of the knife
Yeah,
is
the-
listed on the first page.
which it's defined in the statute as
Yeah.
as a knife in excess of 2 1/2 inches. That's where
Yeah.
that comes from. So the statute defines the knife as a knife
Yeah.
that is 2 1/2 inches or longer. You see what I'm talking about?
Okay, so it's in the statute
Yeah.
that is the requirement.
Right. The part that got scratched out because it was redundant.
Okay. Because like I say, that was an issue this year. We had, they're now bringing like keychains and stuff like that.
Right.
That's why I'm asking, do we need to, while we're in this policy, can we adjust this? Or by law, do we have to abide by the 2 1/2 inches?
Well, it says,
Policy.
or,
This is the change of statute. You'd have to bring it back up to policy again, right?
so, yeah, but I would also say that in that, if you go back and look at the policy, it does define knife as a knife is 2.5 inches or longer. But it also says, I'm looking at the wrong one. It also says, or other dangerous instrumentality. So to me, if it's some other sort of sharpened instrumentality that has, can cause serious injury, we're covered.
I mean, Joey, a pencil, be a whole lot more.
I'm not talking about like I'm talking about like a legit, somebody brought something just underneath on purpose, because we've had a kid bring, it's a keychain, but it's a knife, and it's sharpened like an actual knife. And they used it like one.
All right, and it's used as a dangerous instrumentality.
So that still would fall
I
under
think that
this.
we're covered.
Okay, and that's all I want to make sure, since we're going over the policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna be covered.
The other question I have,
Because it
Ron,
happened.
is, in the new green sections, where we use the word expulsion on the second green section.
Yes, sir.
Expulsion in that instance is referral to the alternative school.
To the DRC, go through our normal process for
But
that.
on the second paragraph, where it says expelled from all public schools of the system, you're not offered any educational alternative under that scenario. That's the way I understood what the legislature is doing there. Is that the way you understand it?
Our understanding it, yes, sir. I mean, a pre-K through 5 student that would go through this, we would offer homebound services after he or she went through the DRC process. I have trouble putting a pre-K to 5 student out for the remainder of the year without any. Now I know homebound is not the best, but it is better than no services. So we would go with homebound services for that particular student,
Okay.
and have in the past, and we'll continue that process.
But you can only do that on the 4th offense if it's drugs or weapons involved, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I mean, the language is different, and so I'm wondering what that means to us.
I can get with Bob Hammond if we need to make any adjustments.
Okay. Do we have a motion already?
We do,
Yes.
I'll
and a
call a question.
second.
We have a motion and a second on
Call
it.
a question.
Yes. We'll go ahead and call. for the
Voting is open.
Vote. You're ahead of me, Miss Cindy.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Mr. Duncan.
Gotcha.
Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Moving to section L, have a consider approval to the revisions to policy JDE expulsion. Mr. Jinko?
Thank you, sir. First page is some minor changes about the school board shall provide written notice of a hearing. Then a student who is suspended for longer than 10 days or expelled shall be provided with academic instruction at an alternative setting in accordance with that particular revised statute. On page 2, I give some changes related to firearms, knives, knives and drugs. It says a knife with a blade equal to or in excess of 2 1/2 inches in length of any illegal narcotic, drug, or other controlled substance on school property, including a bus, school-sponsored event, shall be expelled from school for a minimum of 4 complete school semesters. However, the superintendent may modify the length of minimum expulsion required in the above paragraphs on a case-by-case basis, provided such modification is in writing. Toward the bottom, additional reasons for expulsion, it lists any student instead of any pupil. Principal may recommend expulsion to the superintendent for any student in grades pre-K through 5 who's found guilty carrying a knife of exceeds 2 1/2 inches, Any students in grades 6 through 12 found guilty of being in possession of tobacco, alcohol, or a vaping product on school property or on a school bus or on a school-sponsored event may be recommended for expulsion. And then notwithstanding any public, school, state, or local policy, a student in grades 6 through 12 who is suspended a third time within the same school year, excluding those related to dress code authority, shall be recommended for expulsion. And then number 6, any student in pre-K through 5 after being suspended on 3 occasions for committing drugs or weapons offenses during the same school year, just the same language that they had in the suspension part, they've added to the expulsion part. And then readmittance after expulsion is on the superintendent now instead of the school board.
Do I hear a motion to adopt?
I make a motion to adopt.
Second.
And Ms. Rose made motion, Mr. Joey made second. Seemed like it's all trying to be consistent with all the prior policies.
Yes, sir.
and
Do you need to add marijuana in line 3 with the tobacco, alcohol, and vaping products? I know you added it in the other ones, I'm saying, or do we need to add it here too? Because we added it, what, in 3 other things?
You added in other policies.
Do we
yes,
want to
sir.
add that here too, just so we don't have to come back later? On line 3, any students in grades 6 through 12 found guilty of being in possession of tobacco, alcohol, or vaping products, y'all want to add marijuana in there as well? I mean, I make a motion to amend that.
I'll second.
Where is that? I'm sorry.
On line 3,
Number 3, okay.
after alcohol, we can put
I'll second.
marijuana in any form.
That's up here.
But since we added it in the other ones, I feel appropriate to add it here.
Okay.
Since it's illegal in the other ones, it might as well be illegal.
Might as
in
well
this
be
one.
illegal in this one too. Don't flip pages, don't go to section 1, it's right here.
Okay, you got that, Miss Cindy, on number 3?
Yeah, I just don't know how to
Okay.
spell marijuana.
There's a motion.
You got marijuana in there, Mary Jane, list out all the synonyms. One and all.
It's a shame that you have.
So there's a motion to amend number 3 to add in marijuana. A second's been made to the amendment. We need to have a vote to allow the amendment.
Wait a minute, let me figure out how to spell marijuana. Who made the second, Mr.?
I did.
Okay,
Ms. Rose.
thank you. 3. Okay. Take a vote. Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
And do I hear a motion?
Motion to adopt as amendment.
Motion to adopt as amended by Mr. Joey,
Second.
second by Ms. Rose. No other discussion, we'll call for a vote.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
And last but not least, M, consider approval of the revisions to policy JGCE, child abuse. Mr. Jinko?
Yes, sir, thank you. First page adds a little broader definition of a mandatory reporter, talks about any teaching or child care provider. Bottom part of that paragraph adds these services to a child. Page 2 talks about an SRO being a mandatory reporter also on our campuses. There is some adjustments made to the procedure for reporting child abuse or neglect. Some deletions in paragraph 1, some deletions and additions in paragraph 2. It says reports in which the reporter has reason to believe abuse or neglect is being perpetrated by someone other than the individuals listed in number 1. There's a process that they would go through. Number 3 talks about dual reporting to both the Louisiana Department of Child and Family Services and the local or state law enforcement agency is permitted. Page 3 talks about reports to the Louisiana Department of Child and Family Services should be made as follows, outlines their A, B, and C section. Last part, that green part is, I understand it has to be in there, but we as a board and we as a system, it's not going to prevent a mandatory reporter from reporting those types of issues. The big thing is that the language has been adjusted, that the employee does not have to go to their immediate supervisor to report. He or she can report directly to those particular agencies.
Teachers, SROs, all
Correct,
those
yes, sir.
people.
Everybody listed in there can go straight to the agency instead of going to the administrator, which they had to at one time.
All right, so do I hear a motion to adopt?
Move.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Buchan, second by Ms. Rose. Any discussion? All right, we'll call for a vote.
Voting is open.
That's perfect. That's like my mom. That's my mom. You got those at all? Remember police? You knew exactly what they were. There goes Miss Sue.
Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, that's all to be brought before the policy committee today. It is adjourned.